So the listening audience would love to know, does your firm spend a lot of time on LinkedIn sourcing, or a little bit, or not at all? What's your secret if you're not?
It's a good question. Certain of my partners, I'm sure, do. Just looking at backgrounds and how people are transitioning to various roles, as they go through their career. Personally, I don't do a lot of that. Maybe it's generational. It's also having built relationships over a long period of time. In some ways, I don't have to do that because I do know these clients and what they're really looking for. I think it's a good investment to make, but I think there's other networking that's even more effective. One is keep up with people you work with. How often have you heard, well, gee, I used to work with somebody, but I haven't talked to them in 5 years or 10 years. Keep your network active. Okay. Some people I've heard, and they have what they call an influential 100, and they look at that influential number every month or two, and they just keep in touch with those people. And if they don't get responses or whatever, they move them out and move somebody else in. It doesn't have to be 100; it could be 15, and make an effort to help those people in their career so that when you need it, it will be there. There's an old axiom about this, which I'll share, and it's people will expect you to swim the ocean for them, but very few will jump a puddle for you. So you want to make sure you're working with those that will jump a puddle, and keep up with those folks that you really, really think you can be helpful to, that you want a relationship with. There really is a term that one of my friends has written a book on. It's written several books. It's called relational economics, I think. It's written by a guy named David Nour, N-O-U-R. David believes there's real economic value in relationships and how you cultivate them. I happen to be a believer of what David has to say. Maybe not everything he says, but certainly that aspect of it. There really is that aspect of it. So I'd say, too many of us lose touch with people we used to work with. I know in my corporate days, which now go back 30 years, I'm still in touch with some of my colleagues. All of us were senior officers at a company called Tiger International. So I still talk to the CFO there. I talk to a couple of other people that we worked with, more than a couple, and keep up with them. I may not do business with them. I may not, but our lives were entangled at one point. There's no sense in not showing some relevance to your life and theirs. And it's just surprising how that has a payoff when you need to, but you got to be there for them. That's the flip side. And sometimes you have to be there for them more often than they'll be there for you. But continue to build those relational networks. Don't do networking, show up at events and say, hi, I'm Joe Bag of Donuts and I'm looking for a job kind of thing. People will just shy away from that. So don't do that. But if you build these kinds of relationships, you do your LinkedIn, you're involved in some groups, maybe you do not-for-profit work or whatever, a lot of this will come into focus. But here's something else that's kind of interesting. It leads to it. So people who have had some success in, let's say, in a career, get to a point. It usually comes in mid-career. Sorry about the cough here. And they look at two tracks. The first is to continue their career as it is. Maybe they've reached a pinnacle and they're ready to go on to something else. Or they think about their life now as being a pie chart, if you will, where they can do a number of different things. And you can take the pieces in and out of what you're doing. Maybe you want to be a poet, a plumber, a weaver. Maybe you want to teach school. Maybe you want to, sit on a couple of boards and teach at a university and work as an operating partner for a private equity. You fit all these pieces together so it's not one employer. Okay. And that fitting together, some people think it's risky, but who are you betting on? You're betting on yourself. And the evidence really shows that if you follow that path, in 2 years, you're probably going to be economically as well off, if not better off, if that's your determining factor. It's riskier because you're betting on yourself, and you don't have all the resources, you don't have a corporate job where somebody's bringing coffee to your desk every day and you're not going to meetings 10 hours a day. But I think it's important to understand those two worlds, and they do come together, because you can take a corporate job. Let's say you are in the pie chart, and somebody comes along with a great corporate job. So then you go and you jump into that, and that becomes, your 100% pie chart for a while. But in this world, nothing stays forever. You might be back in the pie chart again. So you keep the relationships between both sides of the equation going, and by doing that, you create more opportunities for yourself.